All right, hello YouTube. I'm just going to jump right into this. And today we're going to be making liquid culture for our mushroom liquid culture syringes. We're going to be extending something like this that you get in the mail into a um, jar size about half full and extending that $5 syringe um, many times over so that we can make more inoculations, more grain inoculations, and then move more grains into different substrate to grow different mushrooms. Um, I have um, three liquid cultures ready. Let me show you what we're going to do, where we're going with this, so it makes more sense. I hope I don't reach a video size limit, but we're going to be taking our liquid culture syringes of different species and extending them. You can see that cloudy thing about halfway full. That's the mycelium, and then the broth is a sugar broth. And then we use that liquid to transfer to grains, which will be another video. So it's super simple. This bit is kind of old hat to me at this point, but something that I'm going to do today with you all is something I've never done before today. I'm going to try and reuse single-use syringes so that we can put them all in the pressure cooker and they'll be sterilized to remove the liquid culture and then transfer that into the grain, sterilized grain. So I bought about a bag of 100 of these from China, and I'm not too keen on ordering anything from China right now, and even if I was, I don't have the time. So hopefully they're a good quality plastic that holds up under the pressure cooker. So I've got those. I'm going to sterilize these using one method where you wrap them in tin foil, and I have these here, which are from Liquid Fungi, where I got my latest round of liquid cultures, and they've been great, by the way, so check them out, liquidfungi.com. Pink oyster, liquidfungi.com. I'm gonna put these in a jar of water and put that in the center of my pressure cooker, and then these I'm gonna wrap in tin foil. All of them I'm gonna sanitize with boiling water. So liquid fungi has been great. I ordered a pack of 5 that comes something like this, and one of them didn't take. The Florida oyster for some reason got contaminated, and one of them I dropped on my way into the house. I left it out in the sun, and it looked viable. You can see little things floating in there. It looked viable, but it was dead by the time I used it. So I sent them an email, and they were super cool about it. Not only did they replace the king oyster and the Florida oyster, which is all they would have had to send me, they also gave me an Italian, a black poplar, and shiitake. So the Italian's an oyster, shiitake, and black poplar. I know shiitake is good for low-tech growing, so that's great. Black poplar I don't know that much about. And oysters, that's where you start off. They're fast colonizing, fast growing. They eat anything. So now I have a real library of cultures here. And so I've got Florida, golden, king, blue, pink, all that. So it's going to be great. Let me show you the supplies you need that we're going to be working with today. It's all low-tech stuff with the exception of this All-American pressure cooker, which I bought when I won a contest at work. But you can use the regular pressure cookers that aren't that expensive. That's just one of those things I had to have. So as you get into mushroom growing, it's really an artisanal craft. So it really, the more you learn about it, I tend to want to have nicer and nicer things. I think I'm going to buy some glass syringes here eventually. And it's just a great hobby. And especially during a pandemic, it's wonderful because You can look around you and literally turn any wood or cardboard or newspaper into edible food for yourself and your community. There's even, once you're really into it and maybe you have a lab set up, not only would you have a entirely virus-free filtered lab if you really get into this, but you could potentially use the natural antibody producing antifungal, antiviral mechanisms of the oyster organism itself to create antibodies, its own antivirals to certain things. I'm not at that stage yet, but some of you out there are, and I hope you're working on something with the, I mean, I don't know how you get a virus sample, but maybe there's someone out there doing that. And the whole hobby of mushroom growing as it is these days came from people like that, DIY hacker kind of people, and frankly, drug users who had to figure out a way to grow their own drugs. But I don't do that. It's all edible stuff here. So you'll need, you don't need, but you'll need boiling water. So I'm going to turn that kettle on. We're going to need a measuring cup. You'll need your liquid cultures that you're going to be extending. Reynolds wrap, malt extract, and sucrose. You can get that from the brew supply store. You'll need a pot. You'll need your jars. I'm going to do, I have 5 new syringes to make, but I'm going to make an extra one. And I can do 6 around the edge of my pressure cooker, and then I'm going to put this this system of sterilizing these in the center, and then the foil wrapped ones will go on top. There's plenty of room. First time doing this, so you'll need also to measure out smaller amounts for the sucrose. You'll need something like this, tablespoon or something, and clean distilled water. And then you'll need to have prepared ahead of time these caps to go on the ball jars. So these caps have a high temp silicone, and that's going to be this RTV silicone. Mine's red. I don't know if they all are. I got it at Walmart. It's not prohibitively expensive. And you'll need to drill. This is where your syringe will be put in, and then this is polyfill, which you get at Walmart also. It's for stuffing stuffed animals and things like that. And then you'll need, what you do is the polyfill is a, for me anyway, is a 3/16 bit, and then the larger syringe with the silicone over it is 1/4 inch. So prepare these ahead of time. I'll just show you now. You take these, you grab the silicone, bunch it up, and then you twist a bit, and you stick it through, and then you pull it through, and it should be nice and bunched in there like a cigarette filter, okay? And then what you do is you trim it. You trim them all up like that. I haven't done that ahead of time, but I just wanted to start the video. Didn't want to overthink it. So let's trim these up right now. Just take a second. I have obviously prepared these lids ahead of time. I've used them before. They don't really wear out too much. Like, the seals are still good for the syringes to go into. But you don't want a whole bunch of extra polyfill, because if it gets wet, that's ends up being a good place for contamination to form. So I think that's six of them. All right, so those are there. We've got the rings, the jars, and you'll need tin foil to go over top to keep the polyfill from getting wet. So what you'll need to do is 1 tablespoon of sucrose to 1 tablespoon of malt extract for every pint. Now there's about a pint in every jar, so that's for us 6 pints. And that'll be 1 pint is 2 cups, it's 4 cups, so 3 whole things of these. And I'm gonna go ahead and use the distilled water just to be extra safe, but I really don't think you need to. I think you could just easily use well water if you have good well water. But if it's city water, you'll want to leave it out for several hours so it gets dechlorinated. Or you can go to one of those, they're all over here, water filling kiosks. Two, 4, and hold on. And usually I just put on some music or something and then go at this, and it can be a really fun thing to do. All right, so that's 6. And while that's going, we'll put it on a very low heat. You don't want to caramelize your sugars. That can kill the mushrooms. My cat's snoring. But you will want to add some heat. That's pretty precarious there. So I think we're done with that. The water just boiled. So we're gonna put it in a big bowl here. Let me show you better here, this way. I've never done this part before, but just a brief look at the message boards said that this is a pretty reliable method. I don't imagine, I don't see it going bad. But they said, I think just fill up a syringe a few times. I mean, honestly, I feel like that's pretty good. We'll put the cap back on, and then we'll be wrapping each one of these in tin foil, which I've never done before, but I think something like that ought to work just fine. Again, I'm not editing this because I don't want to mess with editing software today. So we'll put this just here, and we'll keep going at this. And that'll just rinse it out. I've only used these syringes once, just to do, for example, pull out a quick liquid culture, stick it into the same type of jar we're using for the liquid culture, and then inoculate the grains with it. So that's probably just rinsing some sugar out of it. And they were recapped right away. I don't think they're too contaminated. Oh. And the outside I'm not too worried about because that'll be in the pressure cooker again. And I'm not even sure why you need tin foil for it, because I think just so in case it melts. This is I think they're less than 50 cents a piece. They're from China, so I don't know how good the quality is. I'm going to assume the ones from Liquid Fungi are better quality plastic. there's probably a lot of more seasoned mycologists out there who are cringing at anything I'm doing right now. I don't know. We'll put that back on to boil. Get some more hot water in here. That's 4. I could do, I could fill them with alcohol as well. People say when you do that, you still want to pressure cook it. So, I'm really short on funds these days, and I really don't want to have to spend more money on alcohol, but that's certainly an option. And I don't think you have to be precious with it at this stage. I think that it's such a quick process, and you're already creating an ideal environment for the liquid mycelium to flourish, that you can probably get away with a small amount of contamination, and the mushrooms will sort of use their own survival mechanisms to compete with it. I could be entirely wrong. I don't know how many of these I'll need. Just kind of want to knock any solids out of there. The other batch I'm actually going to fill with water and submerge in water. All right, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's enough of those. I'll use the very fresh ones with the larger gauge needle from Liquid Fungi. They just feel like a better quality as well. So the system with this one, like I said, we're gonna fill it up, and I guess I'll leave this bit on. I assume that's a autoclavable plastic, and then we'll just do the same. So we'll fill it up. I don't care, I could be wrong in what I'm doing here, but we'll see, and I'll learn something. Rinse it out, fill it up, cap it, reheat that water, and rinse it out, fill it up. Some freshly boiled water. And give it a good rinse. Another rinse maybe. Fill that up. All right, and that's all of them in there like that. Let's just fill that with, there we go, warm water from the tap. So we've got 5 of the ones that I used, And we've got 3, 6, 7 of the old cheap ones that'll be on top. And we're done with that boiled water, and we're done with that. So, break. And once you get into this, you'll learn there's no end of busy things that you can do with your mushrooms that keep you busy all day. So if you're quarantined, it's just great. So we're going to heat this water up, and while we heat that up, I'll measure out the sucrose and malt extract. The sucrose is the white stuff. So we'll need 1 tablespoon per pint, and we've got 6 pints, so we'll need 6 tablespoons. This is a 10 tablespoon thing I got at Walmart. So let's just fill it up here. It's really fine powder. 6. I don't think it has to be very exact. So that's 6 sucrose. And I want to cap it. I don't want it to get wet. And it gets all sticky if it gets wet. And now 6 dextrose. That's up to there. And that ends up just being like, I don't know. Like I said, it's not a precious process. You can just sort of probably just intuit it with the spoon here. All right, and that goes in the mix as well. Give it a stir. Just heat it up enough just to melt it in there. And then we're going to transfer it to the jars. Uh-oh. A fly got in there. That was in my jar already. You know what? I'm cool with that because we're gonna sterilize this whole batch at 15 psi for 20 minutes, and then we're just gonna let it cool off overnight. So I'm not worried about it. All right. Oh, do I have another fly in there? Actually, I did find some bug parts in my last batch. Yeah, I guess what happened was a bug flew into the jar when I wasn't looking. It's just pure sugar. You go crazy for it. Good, that's just a fly wing. Pretty gross. It's farming at the end of the day, you know. All right, let's recap this. Done with that. And then while that's heating up, I wanted to do something. All right, that's there, good to go. Let's move the jars to the sink. That's there. And maybe we can just get away with dumping right from the pot into our jars. So I gave all these a wash. Just before, and we'll do one here. So you can see it's warm, but there's still a couple of little chunks in there. I'll stir it around. You can taste it yourself. It doesn't taste like much. All right, and that's pretty good. So we'll turn the heat off. And let's fill these jars. Oh, well, we will want to measure it out. I mean, I don't think I did last time, but let's do it this time because I'm on video. I don't want to look like an amateur. I'm kidding, I totally am. It's 1 pint. 1 pint. And 1 pint. 1 jar. And 1 pint. And 1 jar. Pint. 1 jar. You do not want to spill this. It'll be a sticky, buggy mess. And I can see the bottom, it's all clear, perfectly dissolved. So we're golden. Way too much. Just add a little there, there, there. Okay. And last pint, last jar. And we're ready for the caps. Caps on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't see any buggy pieces in there. Bands on. Bands. Band. Get the band back together. Band. Band. Make sure they're nice and snug. Band. And 2 more. Band and band. So it's a light color. It gets darker once you cook it somehow. That could be some caramelization happening. I don't know, but I haven't had any real problems. The majority of my jars work. Get this out of the way. And now we're ready for our fancy pants pressure cooker. There is some trick to this. You have to use, absolutely have to use one of these. This goes in the bottom to keep the jars off the hottest surface. And then you got to put in enough water to, I don't know if you can hear me, you got to put in enough water to, you want to fill it up just to this, the top of that platform. And then I even give it a little more. Now I'll show you how they look in the jar. Not that one. Which should work. Alright. Here we go. So you can see they all fit in there, and those fit there. And then, oops, I forgot to put the foil on. And then these will go on top. So let's put the foil caps on. every one. You can reuse these, obviously, no reason not to. And then, as I said, I'm not at all sure this won't go disastrously wrong. Good. All right, we'll put our syringes in on the top. Now, with these all-American pressure cookers, they have no gasket. It's all solid aluminum, and it's meant to seal that way. But sometimes it doesn't seal as well as it could. And a trick is you can put some oil, olive oil. I have lard at hand right now. And lard is always in a solid state, so this is the first time using it, but just run it along the edge there like that, and that'll help lube it into a tight seal. Let me show you here, and I'll do this as well along here, just a thin smear of it along the edge. Again, it's not rocket science. We're growing mushrooms here. Extra there. And you want your gauge out. And these things, I highly recommend picking one up. These little arrows line up so that your jig lines up there. And then you put all these up, and as you tighten, you want to tighten the ones directly across from each other at the same time in pairs, so that it tightens down evenly. So you just snug it up, give each one a little turn, and then go back, repeat it until you really, whoops, now I lost count, which happens sometimes, until it's really on there. You don't want to ratchet it down too much and ruin your threads, but it's a really high quality piece of equipment, so you probably could get away with it. Now I'll turn the heat on high, and we're almost done. I think I could end there. So what you want to do is you'll want to wait until this starts steaming, and then you put on your weight, which is this a crucial piece of equipment, what's numbered 5, 10, and 15, which is the PSI. So you put the 15 PSI weight on here, but you want to make sure it steams for a few minutes first so that it's clear. And then you put the 15 PSI weight on. You watch your gauge until it goes up to 15 PSI, and then you start counting. Set the timer for 20 minutes after it's at 15 PSI. When it hits 20 minutes, turn the heat off, and then let it cool completely. Just leave it till 24 hours, and then it's safe to take this off, unscrew all this, and then you'll be ready to put your fresh liquid cultures in there. I'll make a video about that, but let me show you. I had this one thing here. Once you extend it, you'll get something like this. You can't just leave it there. You have to oxygenate it every day. And what I found to be the best method is I set it on a piece of cardboard on the table so that it doesn't scratch at my table. And then I rotate it like this on the table for 60 seconds. And every 10 seconds, you get a vortex there, and then you reverse it. And then I find that sends it makes more bubbles and it sends the bubbles down. So I feel like I'm getting better oxygen. So you do that for 1 minute per jar, which is really a pain in the butt. But there is a kind of an electrical spinner that you can get where you would set all of this in like an Erlenmeyer flask, and then it would have a piece of metal that's spun by a magnet on a base that spins them for you, and I presumably oxygenates them for you. Obviously, I can't afford that right now, and sometimes I wonder how long you could really get away with not stirring them. It'd be a good experiment, but I don't know if you can see. There's like a dark bug leg in there, but I don't see it's really contaminated at all. You would see black or green or something like that, but you can also see that's really well colonized in there, and it really needs to be used. So this that's about a dense cloud, about half full once it settles down, and I should be doing that tomorrow. I'll make a video about how to sterilize grains and prepare the grains for colonization by our extended liquid culture. And I think I'm going to do popcorn now. Again, it's in the middle of a pandemic, so I didn't want to order rye grain from Amazon, and the popcorn takes longer to colonize. I also have some bird seed, which I've never used before, but it's on hand, so I'm going to be experimenting with that as well. And I do have some rye grains left over, and rye is ideal, but I have to order that from Amazon, and I don't want to do that because kind of how I'm thinking about it is, what if I couldn't do that? What if what ends up being something worse in the future? I think it's valuable to learn how to do things in a down and dirty sort of way, because at the end of the day, you know, it's like you want to just be as masterful as you can with your tools. And I mean, ideally you want to use the finest tools and best practices and everything, but you should have an intuition, I think, of what you can get away with. So that's pretty much it. I'll see how it turns out, and I'll make another video. This one's long enough, I'm sure. Hopefully that gives you a pretty good idea. Check out, I'll try and link it. I don't even know how to do that yet, but Peter McCoy's Radical Mycology has a good series on the basic getting started with extending your liquid cultures and inoculating your grains and things like that. That's where I started, and it's perfectly adequate and totally free on YouTube. So check that out, and I'll see you next time. Bye.